It's easier to say the greedy little landlords instead of the tenants and the landlords going to the government and saying, hey, you guys did this to us. Because deep down, landlords are tenants as well. We just pay it to the bank.
You said housing is a human right. I don't even think shelter is a human right.
What is a human right to you?
A human right is not something that someone else has to give me. It is something that someone else should not be able to take away from me.
Welcome to the Tom Story Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Story, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Tom Story Show. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am your co-host, Tom. We got Steve all the way from, where is it again? Surrey? Is that where you're from? Surrey? Yeah, I keep forgetting. Somewhere outside Vancouver. And this week's guest is Kayla Andrade. I always say things wrong, even if I practice it. You should have seen what happened last week, Kayla. Anyways, from Ontario Landlords Watch. So if you wanted to hear an hour conversation about tenants, landlords, regulation, what's going right, what's going wrong, I think you're probably in the right place this week. Kayla, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm extremely excited. I've been counting down the days to be on your show, guys. Great job.
Well, thank you. Well, we're pumped to have you as well. And I'm really excited for our audience to listen to your perspective on how you look at kind of everything that's going on, because there's a million different ways we could go with the conversations today. But I actually want to start it. What is Ontario Landlords Watch? Are you watching landlords to make sure they don't screw things up and do things the right way? Is it tenant focused? Is it landlord focused? Like, what do people need to know about that?
No, honestly, it's one of the landlords that was, started fighting the water billing with me. He actually suggested Ontario Landlords Watch, almost like a community watch, right? So we're watching out for good landlords, we're watching out for good tenants, and of course, we're watching out for our most valuable taxpayers when it comes down to anything related to housing. So we got together on Facebook over water billing because the city of Cambridge made landlords responsible for their tenants' delinquent utility bills, got a petition drafted, went around to different landlords associations, and realizing that we got a bigger fight at hand, not just about the water billing, but the Residential and Tenancy Act and the Landlord and Tenant Board in Ontario. So we brought everybody together to highlight what that is, what it looks like, what the rules are, and come together as a community from landlords, property managers, paralegals, real estate agents. And we say, no, this doesn't seem right. It's obviously impacting the housing for all parties. Let's get together and figure out what we can recommend to our government and make sure that our voices are heard anytime our government is making any type of changes.
So let me ask you this. The recommendations that are being put forward, are they being listened to?
Some. I think you're going to hear some. Like before COVID, like we were advocating to have our hearings online because We're looking at a situation where our tenants are missing the bus or they couldn't find a babysitter. We're spending taxpayer dollars in holding office space in a community legal format, or it was inside of a hockey arena. So they're paying money to keep these brick and mortar places. And, COVID did result into having these hearings online, but they said that it was in the works before COVID. Just COVID kind of sped that up. So that was great to hear, even down to like rent increases. If you were a landlord who gave an above the guideline rent increase that you weren't supposed to, and you didn't give it on a paper, the N1 application, the tenant can fight that and bring it back to the board, and you would have to owe all that money back to the tenant. Well, now they just say if the tenant's paying that increase on time in full for the 12 months, it becomes the lawful rent, right? So they get a little bit, but again, we're going to see them only giving us little baby steps. And we're hearing rumors that something is going to be happening in October, more rules and regulations. Supposedly the tenants are not going to like it, but I ain't going to hold my breath. It is government. But we do have to keep, turning the heat up and putting the fire to their feet and saying, hey, like you see what's happening based on your policies and what it's doing to your housing stock.
So here's my weird analogy, because I got young kids now and we go to the park and my little guy always wants to go on the teeter-totter, right? So like, obviously I'm very much heavier than him. So I have to like make sure he doesn't fly up when I sit on the other side. If we're looking at Ontario landlord tenant, it seems like it is one way favored, that a lot of it is favoring the tenants. And a lot of that has got us into the, that's not saying that tenants should be favored more, shouldn't be favored more, but that's just where we're at. And I can tell you, like, without exaggeration, in the last 2 weeks, I've had 3 calls with condo sellers that could have re-leased out. And these weren't like landlords, but they're like, I own this place. I could keep it and lease it out and go buy something new, or I could just sell it. And all of them were like, we've heard too many horror stories. Yeah. Let's just sell it. That could have been rental inventory that came back to the market. And they're like, because of even if it's a 5% risk, we're not doing this. So I guess my question is, from my teeter-totter analogy, is like, how do we get to this position? How did it get? And it's not just Ontario, like BC is not any better. How did we get here?
Well, I say you're going to be the heavier one, right? And I think like if you have the tenants and the landlords, the tenants are going to obviously be the heavier one because they got government backing them. And the reason why they're going to back them is because if you do follow what is right and what is fair, we're going to see these people become evicted. They will obviously need short-term accommodations where the government's going to have to pay to house these people in a motel or a hotel, or to make sure that the shelters are fully staffed and funding's going to them as well. And the community also has to fund these shelters. So they're really using the small landlords as a social agency for the government with no compensation. Because they know that the rules are tilted towards protecting the tenants, they can justify to their voters that they're doing everything to protect them. Even though what they've done, you're enabling people to fraud the system. You're enabling people to get away with stealing. And that is the key factor here, is that we're not looking at trying to evict people for the simple fact of evicting them. We're looking at, we do have government programs. Those programs do help people when there is a hardship. They just have to be, they have to be qualified. They have to look at their bank statements. They have to look at their income, and then they'll give them funds to help them pay their rent. So if we have these programs in play, why are you making the landlords the credit cards to a tenant that has abused landlords over and over and over again? That is where we would come in and say, hey, now we have to see, we've held a pattern here of tenants abusing landlords over and over again. You need to make sure that you have something in place to track these people. As landlords in Ontario, if you're trying to do an N12, which is a personal use application, you have to inform the landlord and tenant board that you've done it before. So it's like, if we have to inform you of that, how come we're not tracking tenants who are showing up the landlord and tenant board, taking on rental units and not paying their rent on purpose?
But there must have been enough landlords previously that were screwing tenants that it got to this point, right? That it got in the news headlines and I'm not saying it was one more than the other, but the attention to it must have grown to get us to a place that it's so one-sided now on the rules and regulations where people don't even want to invest. Like the mom and pop investor, whether you agree or disagree that is a good thing or a bad thing, and we can get into the financialization of this rental stuff as well. But like the mom and pop investor, if you have a good tenant, probably isn't going to raise the rent because they're good. You know who's not going to forget to raise the rent? RioCan, Allied. I'm not throwing them under the bus, but just any of these big companies. So what happened that made it so one-sided? Was it just the news was the landlords are bad, they're bad, and we got to make it fair for the tenants, and then it went overboard the other direction?
It's hard to say. I think like if you look at unions, you look at tenant unions, you look at the tenants that think that rent should not be going up the way it is. I think what they realize is that this is a symptom of rent control. What's happened now is a symptom of rent control. If you look at what landlords have to do for their properties, when a tenant does vacate, we have to sit back and go, okay, well, tenants are not moving out 2 to 3 years anymore. They're staying a little bit longer. Our property taxes are increasing because we have municipalities mismanaging taxpayers' dollars, and now taxes are going up. We have utilities that are going up. We have extra fees like stormwater charges that are being put. We have rent eviction permits and have to get a permit to renovate your properties. So a lot of it comes down to that red tape that's causing rents to increase. And it's easier for government to blame those greedy little landlords for increasing the rent. Meanwhile, they were the ones who increased the cost to the homeowner. So, and what they always like to do, because it's easier to say the greedy little landlords instead of the tenants and the landlords going to the government and saying, hey, you guys did this to us. Because deep down, landlords are tenants as well. We just pay it to the bank.
Right.
Right. we're all tenants, we're like, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. And sometimes it makes sense to even to be a tenant these days because you have so much protection and you have everything covered for you, especially in an economy that is very, very, it's hurting. I think it's hurting. I think a lot of people have to see how bad things are going to get. And I think we haven't even touched what this housing crisis has to offer because I think it is going to get worse.
Because there's been a lot of talk, and like I've done media on it, that for the first time in a long time, rental prices have actually come down. And it's kind of like being celebrated and like, hey guys, it's not as bad. Like the building's still on fire, but half of it we've got cooled down a little bit. That's kind of how I'm looking at it, where at least in Ontario, like rental prices are lower than they were last year, lower than they were 2 years ago for asking rents at least. But they peaked out kind of in the summer of 2023, but they're still wildly higher than they were pre-COVID, like in terms of what's happened. And there's inflation that will play its part into that, but they're still significantly higher. Do you think that because we're talking about it now that, hey, rental prices are actually going down, everyone's going to be like, all right, well, we kind of solved the problem here. And then in 3 years, there's literally nothing that's going to be built and they're going to spike again and be like, holy crap, we should have taken it more seriously. Because rents went up really consistently for about 10, 15 years, or at least from 2008. And then they've kind of dropped off a little bit recently. Is there anything, I don't know, did anything I just said make any sense? I just want you to confirm if I'm on track here.
You're on track. And I think the one piece that you're missing is that international students, right? You look at 2023, you see how they brought in like 17,000 international students. And then lately in the last report, I believe for 2024, it was coming in at 540. 540. How do you go from 17,000 to 540? And that's where we got to see that peak. And we got to see everyone coming in and the necessary of people renting out, taking away their long-term rental units and turning them into short-term or into rooming houses, right? So there's a lot of risk to the rooming houses and the boarding houses, but that's where we had people wanting to get into that because the rules and regulations on long-term rentals are just asinine. It's just no matter which way you look at it. That's why we've also now had a peak in short-term rentals, and now we have a short-term rental ban in municipalities because they've seen such an uptick in people wanting to do short-term because it was not underneath the Residential Tenancy Act. So if our government wants to not have this spike again, and wants more supply. But again, the supply needs to come from, I would hope, the private sector, because as a taxpayer, I'm tired of my money going to nonprofit organizations who are literally building units literally at $483,000 a piece. Like,
where's that happening? That's in your market?
That's in Hamilton.
So give our viewers an update on that. Like what happened there? What are they doing?
So as I literally have the thing up. So they have 40 deeply affordable units. They have 10 supportive units, and then they have 74 market rent units with an investment of $60 million. And they also have the energy efficient standards featuring EV charging stations, solar panels, and geothermal heating and cooling. We have people living in tents, guys. We have people living in modular homes or shipping containers next to a dump in the city of Waterloo. But we got $60 million to do 124 units.
But hey, my social housing need, affordable rent applicants really need those EV charging stations, right?
Oh, for sure.
They can't make rent because they're too busy being good green people, making sure they buy a Tesla. Oh, wait, you can't buy a Tesla. Whatever the other green thing is that you're allowed to buy. And you got to plug it in. Like, you're right. It's absolutely stupid that we would be spending money on putting EV charging stations in places that are under market rent. But what was you said there was 70 units that were market rent.
74 market rent.
Okay. How many were the other two?
40 deeply affordable. Whatever that means.
That's a new term. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah. Well, if you look at we got 40 deeply affordable and 10 supportive units. And when you look at who pays for government housing / co-op nonprofit housing, we have people renting a 2-bedroom with garage, waters included, for $120 a month. That's what the tenant has to pay. The taxpayer is subsidizing the rest. And they could afford more based on OW or based on ODSP. They do get more for a shelter cost, but the tenant is still only paying that $120, and it doesn't go up for them unless their income is going to go up. But as long as they stay on the system, how is that a sustainable model in itself? So we always tell our government, like, we need to be looking at the way that you run government housing now, or social housing, and where you give these permits and these grants to these nonprofit organizations who, some of them are even on the sunshine list, getting salaries, right? So, I'm looking at being an advocate for our housing industry for the last 15 years and trying to defend, this is what's going on, this is how it's wrong, this is what you should change it for. But now I'm like diving deep into, how are you guys doing this? Where is this money? Because I know the region of Waterloo has spent $65.5 million in this year dealing with homelessness. Mm-hmm. Like, do the math. If we had to give $2,000 a month for 12 months, we could be paying the rent for the entire year on over 2,700 people, right? We wouldn't be seeing what we have right now. They just want to continue to put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound and then say that we fixed the problem. But instead, who's benefiting from this? Because taxpayers are not benefiting from this. The tenants are not paying from this. And even though you are trying to wrap them around with services and outreach workers, those people are getting the salary, but we still have a growing problem because we're still getting more tent encampments. We still see people homeless. So who's actually benefiting from this?
But these are different things, right? Like, these are, I've heard about, like, on the news, they've had a whole bunch of stuff in different parts of Ontario. It actually feels like maybe different parts of Ontario now are worse than it was here. And we had the downtown east side in Vancouver. But that is a different thing, isn't it? Like, the person trying to find an affordable unit to rent is one thing versus the absolute homelessness, which in my opinion is much more of an addiction problem than it is everybody else, right? Like, I don't think there's definitely some people out there that have a job that are making it, it's hard to make ends meet and maybe you go homeless, but those people generally are not going to a minimum wage job and then coming home to their tent at night, right? These are definitely two different problems, I feel anyway.
You didn't get into real estate to become a web developer, but a great website is a must. And sellers, well, they want their listings to shine. RealtyNinja.com builds affordable, beautiful, mobile-friendly real estate websites with lead capture and SEO. And there is no tech skills required. Realty Ninja will migrate your content, handle domain changes, and set up as free during your unlimited trial with no credit card required. I've been using Realty Ninja since 2012. Try Realty Ninja right now for free and sign up using our link, realtyninja.com/Tom, and you will save 20% off your entire first year when you launch.
No, we do. We have the mental health and addiction where people don't want to be housed. They want to stay in the tent encampment. We're not getting them the service. There's a 9-month waiting list to get somebody into rehab. So even for we have someone that does want to get help, we don't have the services for them to get the help. Then we have the other people who are a single mom or a single dad or even just a married couple just struggling and would love to benefit from the portable housing benefit, which gives them an additional $350 towards their market unit rent. But you've got to take your name off the housing waiting list in order to qualify for that portable housing benefit. Mm-hmm. Then we also have people who are living in the carpooling stations in their cars into trailers. You don't get to see this stuff online. If you take a drive on the highway, I want you guys to see how many trailers are actually parked there. And people are parking in the Walmart plazas. We've gotten to a point where we have multiple different levels of affordability crisis, but I think what we really have is a mismanagement of government because it's not appealing to their voters to talk about and make the necessary changes in order to still stay popular and secure their own position.
Is the who is building it and how they're building it the issue, not so much the fact that they're trying to, and I'm sure because you've been so outspoken on this, you probably get some people pushing back on you or saying like, what, you hate that homeless people are getting a house? Like, you know what I mean? Like where it's coming, I understand the way it would come out if they're not fully educated on everything that you know. Yeah. But it's like, is it just that we need to put this back in the hands of the private sector and we have to incentivize them for them the ones to do it? Is government just the issue? Like it just, we haven't even started to talk about the, what was it, $4 billion for, or no, $13 billion for 4,000 homes they're going to build. But is it the who and what they're doing it and how they're doing it? That's the issue. Not that they're building housing. We can all agree is probably like a pretty good thing that we need.
Yeah.
So
right.
So from your perspective, if this isn't the right way, I guess, like, if you were in control of this and you didn't have to worry about the voters, how would we do it? Will we just give the money to private builders and say incentivize them to do it? Is that how we would do it?
I think we're going to have two different goals here. One is going to be supportive housing, because that's more hands-on. We have people that need more support. And then you have the affordability. Right now, we see the nonprofit supportive housing people coming into the market of for-profit. Like right now, they're going to build 74 market rent units. Why are we going to use taxpayer dollars to build market rent units, right? I want to see the fact that we have nonprofits that are taking government money, but we're utilizing that money as well to fulfill people's salaries. I want to see that money. It's almost like that UNICEF where you're paying for a kid and like a lot of it's going to go to the organization. Very little of it is going to that in particular child that we're trying to feed, right? Same thing here. We're spending more money on the development. Everybody knows if you have government or someone building housing for government, you're paying 3 times more. I posted this article with, the 60 million for 124 units with these EV stations, and people are like, yo, I can do this cheaper. We're not asking you to build it. We're not asking you to manage it. We're not asking even for the land. We're asking you to subsidize the people that we're going to rent to. Right? We're going to have that part where I can come to you as the government and say, hey, here's my tenant. They stopped paying rent. Like, I would like the money in order for you to say, like, you're going to make me a social agency. At least you can do is back it with your money. And some of these programs, sorry,
no worries.
I turned down the thing, but I guess it didn't.
No worries. All good. Keep going. You're on a roll. Go.
I know. I've lost my train of thought now. You want to see these people have this money coming from the government to build, but we have a situation where all parties of elected officials are not talking to each other. We have the federal government, the provincial government, the municipal government. We got the minister of addictions. We have a minister of social services. Like they're all doing something thinking that they're going to come and be the hero. But here the private sector is asking the government, just pay these people what they need to have their housing. And we probably wouldn't need them needing addiction services or mental health services because we're able to keep them in their homes. And initially they were saying, let's treat them before we put them in homes. And now they've changed that model to say housing first. And I get it. How can you expect anybody to like get their mental state together or get off drugs when they're sleeping on a cold, damn floor? And I think they're starting to know that working with private landlords are the solution, just like our local government, our local shelter. They said, hey, we want to work with landlords. We want to guarantee the rent. We want to guarantee damages. And we want to put a liaison between you and the tenant if there's communications that break down. That sounds great. But because the landlord and tenant board, because of how long it takes me to evict someone that could be ruining the enjoyment of others or becoming a safety issue, I can't take that risk, right? So a lot of it has to go down with, this is what we need for these type of people, but then we do have that affordability where sometimes it could just be that portable housing benefit, and we could be utilizing the money that we're spending on all these different nonprofit organizations getting government money just to fund their salaries. That's the part that really irritates me when we see nonprofit housing providers and these people are on a sunshine list. Sorry, no, let's give that money to the people who are in need and make sure that they have money to also feed themselves as well.
So basically, instead of just putting all this taxpayer money into building these deeply affordable or market rent or whatever they're calling them, the idea would just be give these people money directly, which if you add that all up, and how they would qualify for that, I don't exactly know. But if you add that all up, it would be nowhere close to the amount of money that is being spent from taxpayers to do it the way that we are doing. Is that kind of where we're at here?
We have them now. We have like rent banks. You have to go in, you got to show them like 12 months of your transactions within your bank account. You got to show that you got an N4 application indicating what your amount owing is, knowing where your job is, where's your income coming from. But as taxpayers, we have to look at all these tent encampments and how much does that cost our taxes when we have to clean up these tent encampments? How much is taxpayers paying? Because having people living in these shelters, it's also putting pressure on our fire department. It's putting pressure on our police department. It's putting pressure on our medical department. This is the mismanagement that I keep talking about, because they're trying to make it not so harsh, but we need to make sure that people have the funds in order to keep the roof over their heads, because at the same time, you're not going to do them any justice have it inside of a motel. We pay $3,000 a month to house one person in an emergency motel.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Toronto taxpayers sounds like are about to pay a whole lot more than. Do you hear that, Tom? Where Olivia Chow says if she stops getting the federal funding, that your property taxes are going up, because it couldn't possibly be anybody else's responsibility but yours, Tom, as a Toronto homeowner.
There seemed to also be, for the tent encampments, there was a direct correlation between the pandemic happening and that getting worse. Yeah. At least what I can see, right? And was it because when COVID first happened and we didn't know much about it, no one wanted to be in the shelters? So is that how that started? And then it just became an issue. And then it's like, well, if you go in there and tell them to leave, you're a bad person.
But it's here now, and then is it migrants, or is it all this different stuff, right? Like it's a disaster on all levels, and it
was never like this before, though.
It was never like this before, because you had standards of which you were like, no, we're going to live this certain way. We didn't have as much drug addiction. We didn't have the amount of. I mean, I'll make the argument that you can draw a pretty good correlation between the legalization of marijuana in this country and mental illness, right? Like that's a very good possibility that maybe it does cause psychosis, guys, just putting it out there. So you've got that whole issue. Now we've got the foreign student thing, the amount of immigration that we've had, and now illegal migrants, which they're trying to normalize for some crazy reason. Illegal aliens are now called other things other than illegal aliens. It's just a massive amount of people that were brought here or came here or were here and didn't have any sort of backing or anything. And now it's all just a big cesspool. But I think that's a different thing. I think anybody listening to this is probably a tenant that actually is trying to pay their bills, or a landlord, or maybe a homeowner that's interested in real estate, right? So you're trying to go now, like, how do we support these people? I think that other thing is not necessarily in our scope on this show to deal with drug addiction, mental illness, illegal migration, all of those things. What I'm trying to focus on, or what I'm thinking is, like, how can we build those, if we're going to do affordable units, like you're saying? My thought goes to government. You have all this government land. You've identified government land of which you're going to build on. For some reason, it's going to cost you $3 million a unit. Why can't we just find a situation where we can give this, I don't want to say give the use of this land to a REIT, to a developer, to a purpose-built rental company, whatever you want to call them, make it illegal for the land that you're giving for the city to collect development fees. So if you don't have land acquisition and you don't have development fees, I'm going to bet your costs went down by 50%. So now you can possibly build a building and rent it out at lower than market rentals. And the government doesn't have to do anything except not do something. Right? That's all they have to do. They have to get out of the way, and they can keep the land. Maybe it's a 100-year non-lease or whatever, right? Maybe it's a 50-year no payment lease, but they just have to get out of the way. But they can't seem to do that because, as Kayla's saying, it's just another regulation. That didn't fix it. You know what we need? Even more ways to fix the thing that aren't going to fix the thing. That seems to be where we're at. Like, is this a crazy idea that we could just actually get the government out of the way and that would fix rents? Kayla, do you think that's even possible?
I think that's going to be like, hey, it's the private sector. We have our own way of dealing things. The government should manage their own the way that we want it. And like you mentioned with like this land and getting the development fees out of the way, the problem is if they waive development charges, they put those costs onto the taxpayers anyways. So if I'm going to waive it for you, so you don't have to pay it, the taxpayers are going to pay it anyways, because you still need the infrastructure to get these projects off the ground. And if they give free land, like what developer wants to come and build it, it's going to have to be tenanted. It can't be sold. I don't think anybody wants to buy a property that's not, you're not owning the land to it.
This episode of the Tom Story Show is brought to you by Carson Dunlop. Real estate agents, you spend months, if not years, earning your clients' trust. You don't want to lose it on inspection day. For over 45 years, top agents across Canada have relied on Carson Dunlop for home inspections that are clear, calm, and client first. Their inspections don't just find issues, they know how to explain them in a way that will protect your client and your credibility. If you haven't worked with Carson Dunlop yet, now is the time to find out why Canada's best trust Carson Dunlop for home inspections. You can learn more at carsondunlop.com. I will also tell you, in the Toronto real estate market, whenever I see a pre-home inspection by Carson Dunlop, I know my buyers can trust it. And Carson Dunlop is a company we've used so many times over the years for our buyers and sellers. carsondunlop.com. And now, back to the podcast.
That's the part where I can't see just like the national housing strategy that the Liberals came out with. They thought it was the best thing since sliced bread and butter. And that turned out to be an epic fail as well. And then we have now another idea of $13 billion, which is the starting point. We know it's going to get more, and how many units are going to be built on government land, and who's actually going to be living in these type of properties. So again, it's just a lot of, now the federal government's been out of this building of housing for quite some time. And now they're coming back into it because of these organizations and municipal level and provincial level saying, hey, in the 70s, the government got out of it. Now the government's getting into it. And I think this is where it's going to get very, very messy.
I just feel like, it's probably the reason that people even watch our show or are interested in real estate is because housing is such a hot button topic. It is so sensitive from every angle because it is shelter. Like, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And that's why there's so many opinions on it, where other things are very clear cut. If I go in to, the grocery store at the end of my street and I grab a Red Bull and I walk out without paying, most people will be like, hey, you stole that. But if I know how the rules work and I think, you know what, I can get away with 6 months without paying my rent, and I know what they're going to have to go through, and, I'll get out of it and I'll lose the court case, but I'm never going to pay them anyways. They can come try to get me. Like, I can game the system. For some reason, some people, not all, but some people wouldn't look at that and be like, well, that's stealing as well. But because it's housing, there seems to be more empathy, I guess, on it. Because there's some people that are actually in really tough situations and something happened and they were living paycheck to paycheck, and one of them lost their job and they're like, I'm tight this month, I'll make it work. And there's that portion of it. And then there's the people that are just screwing landlords. So I guess my question is, and I know you posted about this, why do we look at housing so differently than other things that are very clear cut, like this is theft or this is stealing, versus how we look at it in our industry?
Well, I think it goes based on contract law, right? So I think they're going based on like, hey, it's a contract, but they also say that housing is a human right. Well, food is also a human right as well, isn't it? But again, are we talking about housing being a human right, or are we talking about shelter being a human right? And that's what I like to say to the tenants, like, the government is still providing an opportunity for you to go to a local shelter, or go to a women's shelter. They also have the opportunity for you to go and live in a motel or a hotel until they can find other accommodations. And they also have a waiting list. It's 10 to 22 years. It all depends where you are in Ontario, but there's still that source of housing that they're looking for. But when you do have the people who are in that hardship situation, there is programs available. There's municipal, there's regional, there's programs to help these people in a hardship situation. But we do have these repeat offenders who are not paying their rent on purpose because they know they can live there for about a year, going through the loopholes, going through the landlord and tenant board, going through the divisional court, going through all the stays and the reviews. These are the ones that we need to be able to put consequences in place, because believe it or not, they're the ones ruining it for the good ones. You want to know why our tent encampments have went through the roof? Because our landlords are getting educated. Our landlords are doing their credit checks. Our landlords are reporting unpaid tenants to the credit bureaus, and they're doing that through front lobby, and they can also help good tenants. So if we do have a good tenant who wants to grow to credit so that they can become homeowners or a landlord themselves, you can actually get your landlord to report that to the credit bureaus. And I think the federal government came out and talked about your rent contributing to your credit. But at the same time, we have these professional tenants tenants who are ruining it because they know how to get fake credit checks. They know how to fake their documents of employment. They know how to fake their references, and they make it look like they are the best thing since God's time, to coming in to say, I'm going to be that handy mandy tenant for you and take care of this place as our own. But the landlords are now able to contribute their fact to say, hey, we're watching, we're part of communities, we know what's fake, we're identifying those features, we know we can smell the marijuana coming off of you when you're coming to rent my unit. I do not want my house turned into that, because this is a unit that is thousands and thousands of dollars. Like, we're not handing over just a little, like these, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money, and the landlords have everything at risk. We're just using it as a secondary income to help us, because we don't have a government pension. You know, we don't have that ability to continue to keep working in our field for 65 until we're over 65. This is our retirement plan. And I don't think you should look bad upon someone, but at the same time, we have to set that generation up so that they have that same type of opportunity. And that's where government screwed it up because of all their red tape and policies.
Mm-hmm. You said something that I'm going to, before we end the episode, I have to come back to the human right thing, because I've got a very grumpy old man thing to say about the human right thing. But you brought up front lobby, and that's actually how we met. So Tom, I wanted to tell you, I don't know if you exactly know this, but I had a service that I used to screen my tenants, and they went out of business, which kind of sucked. It was just a little kind of mom and pop shop, but they did background checks and all that stuff. So it's actually that company, Front Lobby, that I reached out, or I guess I did my research and I picked them as the best solution to screen my tenants, which is cool. And that's actually how we've now met, because I reached out to them like I do with every good service, like Realty Ninja, like Square One,
like Carson Dunlop.
It's like, if we know that there's a good service, I'm like, oh, this is actually a good fit, right? So they do great screening at affordable prices, which is great. But then they also now have this other piece, Tom, which I have not used yet. I'm bad for not using it for my tenants, and I'll tell you a tenant story as well. But they do now give you the ability to report your tenant on the credit bureau, which is great for your tenant if they pay their bills.
Yeah.
And not
so
great for your tenant.
It's not just reporting late payments, it's reporting every payment.
Yep.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're going to say, okay, yeah, are they doing good? Or are they making their payments? Yes or no? And it's a great service to use for landlords. I think this is where landlords screw up. They're like, well, they gave me a Credit Karma printout, and they gave me an application, and I phoned the person that they said is HR on their application. They didn't sound very professional when they picked up, but they seemed like a nice person, and that's how you get into a mess. So it's actually using, like, I stress so hard. I've had family members that have screened tenants, and they're like, well, I don't know how you do this landlord thing. Like, these people have all been, the people we've had in our basement suites have been terrible. And it's like, no, guys, did you screen? Well, yeah, I kind of missed the screening part. I kind of missed that credit check part. I've got a simple rule, Kayla. If you've got an over 800 credit score, you're my tenant. That's how it works. Right? Like, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. If you've got a 630, no chance in hell. So it's,
I say 650 and over, but I look at the trade lines. You have to look at the trade lines. It's not just the score. We want to see, like, you got to match their addresses, their job. Mm-hmm. If they're moving around, you look at how much available debt to them, what type of debt that they get themselves into, and then you kind of balance the score.
That's why I like the Front Lobby report, because it just is like, here's all the things. And it's all just in one report, right? So it was really good. So I was really impressed. I'm glad they connected us with you.
We should actually say
landlord too. Tom, are you a landlord right now?
I am a landlord still. Yep.
I'm going to be less of a landlord shortly, but
you're not less of a man, Steve. I don't care what anyone else says.
Less of a landlord, not less of a man.
Heard that wrong.
Tom. I'm becoming more of a man every day.
Just before we get to the next one, just to be clear, like, this episode is not sponsored at all. We're having Kale on because we wanted to have this conversation. But we are going to do a webinar on October the 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's going to be very much like this. We're actually bringing on a lawyer too, Zachary, who had been on this show recently. He's coming on as well to give the lawyer side of things. And what we're going to talk about is the buying and selling of tenanted properties in Ontario and BC. And Kale, I think you're going to be on the webinar as well. So just wanted to bring that up.
you.
we're gonna put we'll put it somewhere in the description. We'll get that link if people are interested. I would encourage you guys to jump on. But let's go to the next one here. If you are a landlord reviewing something, and yes, just use front lobby, but you just give a very specific thing, like in the credit report, here's what you got to look at. I also tell people, like, personal references, like they're going to put someone that's going to say something nice about them. And even if they put their last landlord, you don't think so, Steve? I think so. They're going to put their friend on there.
I asked for close family member, and they give all the dirt. I
That's
asked
good,
for,
actually.
like, if it's like mom,
Yeah.
dude, they give the
Mom
dirt.
will tell you.
You gotta be, I mean, you can't just be like, are they good? Oh yeah, they're great. But then you're talking to mom for a bit, and you kind of start, but warming up to mom.
Even if
and then
they
mom
give
starts
last
letting
landlord's name, last landlord, if they're like the worst tenant ever and the last
landlord,
they're like, whatever possible
because
to get
they
you the hell out of
there.
here, I'm going to tell the next person, they're great. Just get them the hell out of my place. So, Kayla, what on your side, like, you're a landlord, would you look for in a tenant? And is there any little things where, like, some people be like Steve would say, like, if it's a credit score under 620, not a thing. Like, well, what if their credit score is not great, but they've been working on it and they have a story behind it? Would you ever consider that? Like,
If the landlord and tenant board wasn't the way it was, then I probably would. But I think we have to, based on the past reference of the landlord, we have to look at, like, aligning that landlord up to that address, speak with a realtor, find out, did that owner actually own that property that they're indicating? A telltale sign for me is, like, why are they moving? So when you start to hear them talk very negative about their current landlord, and it could be the stuff that's just so minor, and that's why they're wanting to leave. And it's just, you can tell they're going to be like that high maintenance type of tenant. And you know what, when you look at a tenant coming fully prepared, yes, you're going to come with your credit check, and you're coming with your paperwork, and you're coming in there with your family, and you smell nice and you look nice, and you're even bringing your dog because you want me to know that you have a dog and this is the type of person it is. And they literally write a personalized letter to you telling you why they're going to be a good tenant, and I've had that done to me twice in my 24 years. And those people were fantastic just that one letter telling us who they are and what they're all about, because I'm also going to file it because if I have problems with you, I'm now using that as evidence to the landlord and tenant board. But a lot of it has to do getting our landlords fully trained to identify these red flags and to understand what red flags are going to come very quickly as they become tenants. And you have to run it like a business. You can't run it like a charity. And this is how you're going to approach it on a business matter. Some landlords get very emotional in how they talk to their tenant based on something that could be small, like they had visitors. It's like, listen, that's something small, like leave it alone, let them have their visitors, because that interaction that you're going to have based on their visitors, you're going to cause your relationship to go sour, right? So we have a lot to unpack trying to manage, the tenants once they're in there. It could be based on anything from ruining the enjoyment of others, taking over shared accommodation areas. It's always going to be about how we communicate with that tenant. And the one tip that I want to give any viewer that you're a landlord, and even tenants, this is document, because the system is a very broken system. It's a kangaroo court system, but the one thing that we can trust is our evidence. So make sure that you document everything.
What about for tenants? Because there's a lot of scams out there where people are sending deposits before seeing places and they never owned it. And, in BC, Steve, or most of BC, like, realtors aren't involved in rentals. We're involved in rentals. Like, our team's doing over 100 rentals a year. So we're like, I see what's going on as well. And the only thing that concerns me about people going on to Kijiji or Facebook or whatever else exists these days that people are finding, like the off market direct to landlord stuff, is like, how do you even know if they own that property? Like, at least we can confirm it on our system as realtors when we're doing the MLS stuff. So, I had a condo listing last year that was for sale in a downtown condo building. And that listing was also on Airbnb, but, like, it wasn't my client that had it on Airbnb. They stole the photos, put it up, were scamming people. And people were messaging me being like, hey, I'm like, I'm sorry, like, I had nothing to do with this. Like, that's a terrible situation. So you can tell my questions are way too long, Kayla. So I'll get. No,
I love it.
I like to give some context, but
this is a regular thing we're seeing, Tom. Like, I'll let you get back to that, but this is a regular thing we're seeing because you don't have, there's sites like, we've had Max on rental.ca. where the listing that is on that website is verified because the owner of that listing has had to upload their identification to the platform in order to post it. So they're verified. But most, like here, it's the crazy Wild West. We are starting to see more agents take rentals here, but it's very tricky because we can't do things like take the actual deposit for the property. So we could actually put the listing up for rent. We could technically, I guess, connect the people or maybe write the tenancy, but we can't appear as a property manager. We can't collect any of the money. We can't do any of the things that you would expect somebody like that could do because it's a totally different set of trust accounts. So it is the Wild West for people because most of our rentals in the Lower Mainland of BC are done off of Facebook Marketplace. So good luck to you. And you know what? Every investor that I have every new investor, they run a fake ad for a fake property to see what type of response they're going to get at this much rent before they go. And so there's, I think, half of the listings out there.
You do that, don't you? That's just you.
No, I do currently have one out there, but it's not a fake one. But it's super frustrating because you don't know what you're dealing with. Definitely. I mean, I have ads out there right now, and the responses I get back from the tenant side are alarming.
So, Kayla, there's a question in there somewhere.
There's no question. I babble.
Where? What? Let me start this again. We'll take out the last 5 minutes. What do tenants have to watch out for? Because tenants get scammed equally as bad as landlords do on trying to find properties.
Oh, definitely. And I think we're going to see a lot of con artists knowing that there's a crisis and they're taking advantage of it 100%. And this is where there is going to be that professionalism from the tenants that are needed and the education, letting them know, like when you go there, make sure that you're going in person, never give a deposit unless you're actually meeting them. Also talk to the other neighbors, talk to the other tenants around there to confirm that this is indeed the owner. Speak with a realtor, see if they can do a check to make sure that the landlord on title is the same person that you're dealing with. And again, this is where we start thinking about different products and services that can come to our market. And can we have something where landlords can sign up, get validated, and tell the tenants that I am a certified, verified landlord on blank, blank, blank. You can go and you can check. Just like we check their credit, they can be able to check us as well. And we can look more professional to our tenants and make sure that we're protecting these good tenants that are out there and making sure that they don't get scammed, because we know that if it's too good to be true, guys, it is. So don't sit there and think that you hit the jackpot, because if it is listed at a great price in a great area, chances are you're getting screwed over. So be careful on that.
Do you think landlords should have to have a license?
No, I think it's just going to drive up the rental rate in itself if you're trying to get landlord licensing in play. And I think we learned that through Waterloo when they introduced landlord licensing. All it did was cause them to spend money to give to the city for that license. Yes, it involves them getting contractors to come in yearly or every 5 years, and you also have to get a police check. We're lucky if we can convince any landlord to get into this Ontario market. Making a landlord license or a criminal record check at the same time. This is just knowing that if there is a property that's being owned, as long as you give the tenants and the landlords a proper dispute process, that they can go to someone and feel protected, or have someone be able to handle their cases of whatever it could be. That's what your job would be as the government. But landlord licensing is definitely not it.
Yeah, we have a big issue out here now where we have to register with the government prior to evicting someone for personal use or for any use, rent eviction or anything. We have to register. However, the tenant does not have to register with the government in order to serve notice to vacate.
Do you need insurance? The answer to that question is obviously yes, of course you do. Whether you are a tenant, landlord, or homeowner, you need to insure your property and belongings. And when I insure my investment property, personally, I choose Square One. Square One is affordable online insurance for everyone. If you apply for your Square One insurance policy using the link in the description of the show notes, listeners of the Tom Story Show can receive $20 off right now, simply by going to squareone.ca/the Tom Story Show. Square One is no joke. I personally use Square One for my landlord policy on my investment condo. I picked Square One because they were easier to work with than other insurance companies. And when I had an issue with my previous policy coverage in relation to my Strata's coverage, Square One was the insurance company that came up with a solution for my insurance problem at an affordable rate. Online quotes take less than 5 minutes with Square One. Get your home insurance quote today at squareone.ca/the Tom Story Show and save $20.
So it's really quite strange how, and the reason they're doing this is they're trying to track down, and I understand it, they're trying to track down false evictions, right? The penalty now in BC for a false eviction is 12 months and 12 months rent back to the old person you kick out.
Oh, that's even old tenant. We have more. We're 50,000 to 100,000 for an individual, 250 to 500,000 for a corporation. And if you're going to the landlord and tenant board, they could issue money rewarded to the tenant up to 12 months and moving cost.
That's absolutely
crazy. I don't think it's bad faith evictions. I honestly think they're trying to track down these small landlords that may not be claiming their income.
Well, that's definitely something that's going to be happening. Is tracking, because I don't think a lot of people claim their basement rentals and that sort of thing. Or
because they're not legal anyways. Most of them in Toronto are not legal.
Rentals. Yeah, correct. Yeah, they're not. I mean, I'm in Surrey. There hasn't been a permit issued in Surrey in like decades. But now we're in a spot where landlords are getting deterred. So I think you will be renting off of government and large corporations, because the individual landlords, who I would personally rent off of an individual landlord myself, just to have that personal kind of relationship. I also think that if I'm going to be renting, I'm probably going to be looking at either a townhouse or a detached home. So hopefully corporations don't start buying up detached homes all over the place, right?
Oh, they're just demolishing it and building up.
That may be true. But then now it's a deterrent, right? So I've just had my basement tenant serve notice. She's moving on and, shacking up or whatever they're doing. And now the question is, do I even want to get into this again? Is it even worth, because rents are going down, do I even want to entertain this? Because rents are going down and money's devalued. It's like, is this even a big deal if I pay this extra myself now? Like, does it even make a difference if I really have this pain in the butt? And so I put out some sort of an ad, and the responses I'm getting back are wild. They're wild.
What do you get?
It's a 1-bedroom unit, and the amount of people that are unemployed. Oh, don't worry. I'm put the stereotype in, foreign student. I'm a this, I'm a that. I'm a guy and I'm moving in with my sister. I Uber and she is a student at XYZ. I can't believe that. Where I feel bad for a lot of folks is there's a whole lot of people that are split up and now single parents. And before they got the divorce, they didn't look at what rent costs are. Right? They didn't do the math on that, right? They sold their house and they didn't go, oh crap, I can't do this on my own. And that's half the reason why we need partners in this world these days. Right? But I don't know. I'm
doesn't it?
Sorry?
Couple therapy sounds good now, doesn't it?
Sounds cheaper.
It would be cheaper. It would be definitely cheaper. It's almost like we're meant to be two people working together for a reason, like raising children and making it through the world. It's almost like that's supposed to be. But it's just, I don't even know if I should go for it anymore. I just feel like it's not worth it. So is that in itself what Tom was talking about at the beginning? I have this Saturday, I have a listing appointment, and it's somebody who rented it out previously, and they're like, not a chance, man. I'm not going through this again. So they're putting it out to market, which I think is actually good to market for the resale, because it's bringing prices down, because more units are coming to sale for resale and owner occupancy, which I think is a fantastic thing. But that means the rentals in the future are going to be government and they're going to be big business. And I think that sucks.
Look at Toronto community housing. Like, there's people living in Tenticamins on TikTok talking about how they don't want to live in the conditions of Toronto community housing. Like, people think that you get Toronto, like when they got their money from Toronto, they sat there and was like, yay, we get to put all the money into this renovation and fix this and fix that. It's like, whoa, like you're building it. Like, that time will come, guys, where you have to maintain it. And I can tell you right now, there's people who are in government housing and who work in the management portion, and they're telling us that they're stripping the units down. When they have an eviction, they have to strip it down to the studs because there's people punching holes in the wall and putting needles in there. And so now they have to strip the entire unit apart for the renovation side of things. We also have landlords just not knowing what's going to happen with their mortgage. Like, do they want to get back into this rental and rent it out to someone when in Ontario, your yearly lease turns month to month automatically? Yeah, and if you get yourself into a yearly lease and you need to sell it, that new owner can't move in until that yearly lease is done. And still, tenants can fight that at the landlord and tenant board, trying to state that you've done it in bad faith, but you haven't even had a chance to move into it or for the new owner to move into it before they consider it to be bad faith. So a lot of it has to do with them playing politics in the housing industry, trying to peg landlords and tenants against each other. And it's not. We're just asking for a fair and balanced approach so that we can continue to keep doing what we do best. And that's to provide that customer service to our rental units, to provide safe and affordable housing, and also continue to grow our portfolio so that we have this option for people to live in. Because if not, no one's going to make it on our streets waiting 10 to 22 years for government housing units, or our developers are struggling to get their shovels in the ground because we have municipalities saying you need more grass or this, and they got involved way too much, and that's what slowed everything down. But again, we have so many different policies that need to be changed, just like anyone on assistance. Why is that money going directly to them and it should go directly to their owner, right? So that it tries to limit the potential of someone defaulting on their rent, especially if they're on the system, because everyone knows that's wages that can't be garnished, right? So landlords are looking for people with more wages that can be garnished, unfortunately. So the system is it built up by design? I don't know, but I know that they need to listen now before it gets worse. And in 2026, I think that's going to be the year where it's going to be the bottom out for me, I think.
Maybe this is the case with everything in life, but it seems like, from my own experience in real estate, like 5% of the time there's issues between landlords and tenants. 95% of the time things are pretty good and they like each other and they pay rent and everything's good. But 95% of the coverage is about the 5%. Right. The attention on it. And that's probably the same with any news and negative things in the world. But Kayla, so we're almost wrapping up here, and I wanted to bring this up. This has nothing to do with housing, but this is a topic that I'm all on board for. And I'm proud of Dougie Ford for speaking about it. These goddamn speed cameras are not about safety anymore. They're about just as much revenue as possible. And here's what I think. I'm all for taking these suckers down. I think they're ridiculous. Other than if it's in front of a school during school hours, I'm okay with it. I don't want anyone to get hurt. So I'm just gonna say that out front. I'm on board with that. But the way that they're doing it, some of the areas that these are in are ridiculous, and it's so much money. I want all these things cut down. So I just wanted to give you the floor on speed cameras because it's still taxes. It kind of flows into housing at some point here.
It's every municipality is struggling for revenue, and this was a very creative way for them to get that revenue, because they did get really good revenue, and you can tell by the mayors who are outspoken against Mr. Ford on removing these, trying to identify that this is an economy of people are struggling, and one ticket could result into a family having to go to a food bank to get their food. And I like to make it very clear that I was okay with the fact that you want to keep your speed limit at 40 in front of a school area, because this is what everybody's brained to know, that's 40, it's a school zone. At the same time, we see it dropping from 40 to 30, and now you have a camera, and that camera is active all day long, 24/7, and it's literally 19 seconds. So it's not about like that in particular area, because we have a strip of schools. We have a high school and 4 elementary school all on one road. Like, why would they? It's about poor planning of where they put their schools, and I think they should really think about that going forward. And also parking for these parents, because there's no parking. They're parking on the street. If they worry about the safety of the children, you say no parking, but where are they supposed to drop off their children? So it's, again, poor planning right there. But again, we look at how they've dropped it from 40 to 30, and they're also dropping it from 50 to 40 in other areas. So I don't know if they're trying to slow down the traffic so the LRT and anything else that they're trying to convince us is going to be a good thing. But I can tell you right now, what his move was absolutely great. I'm glad that he was listening to the people, and there is going to be other safety measures, such as the speed bumps, such as the flashing light, and something telling you what your speed is for that area, and you're still going to have police in that area. And again, speed bumps in itself is something that does really slow down some people. So good on Ford. You listened to us this time. Now it's time to have a sit down so we could talk about housing and your landlord and tenant board.
I've never had a real speeding ticket in my life. I've never been pulled over for speeding, but I've got, I think, 3 of these speed camera ones. And normally when it comes in, it's like, who is driving? It's usually like 11 over. And actually, the one I got, by the way, was on, this goes back to last year. This is the first one that got me frustrated. It was Christmas Eve. So it was the only time ever. Normally, I can't even drive the speed limit in that area because traffic's so bad. It was the only time ever there weren't cars on the road and no one was driving. And I think I was 11 over. I don't know what the ticket was. It was like $60 or something. But
they had a victim impact like fee. So you got the fee of like how much you were over. Then there was like a victim component fee, and then they have a driver lookup fee. It's like, you just gave us 4 tickets. You got to look this up every single time. Like, put it in your system and only charge me that one-time fee, right? So, and again, they started off with like school areas, and then they moved it out into other areas because they like, hey, this is working. Yeah, it's working for revenue.
I mean, that probably took over the land transfer tax that they were so high on in 2021 and early 2022.
Ours was taken away in 2017, all of our speed cams, I think. I'm actually going to let you know, personally, I think at 11 kilometers or more over, I'm not against them at all. Because I do think that I don't think we're enforcing any of our law. I actually think every city, if the cities really wanted to make their places nice to live, I think that they could enforce their bylaws at an extremely strict rate. I have 15 neighbors around me with 18-inch tall grass in their front yard. Drive around, get the parking ticket assholes, like get them going out there. They can pay for themselves plus 10 more. They can go look at the houses that don't have permits, obviously from the outside. They can go and look at the RVs parked in the front yard of all the properties. I would be fully on board with that because I am an old grumpy man.
Fine. Then I want a camera watching the city workers doing their job and how long they take on their lunches. I want the same on the other side too. If that's where the taxpayer money is going.
That's a different thing. Running a government efficiently. Like, you notice they never go, maybe we should cut some crap at the government. They never say that. We should never cut crap at Olivia Chow ain't going to cut anything out at City Hall. She's just going to increase because she likes spending other people's money other than her. I want to get back right before we wrap to the human right thing. I think we need to clarify this. You said housing is a human right.
They say housing is a human right.
It makes me so angry. I don't even think shelter is a human right. It makes me so angry.
What is a human right to you?
A human right is not something that someone else has to give me. It is something that someone else should not be able to take away from me. It's something that I have as a human, not as a possession, that someone cannot take away from me. For instance, pretty sure my freedom should not be taken away from me. My, slavery, right? That's a pretty bad violation of human rights. I don't think, like people say, oh, food and water. Is it everyone else's job in society to supply you with food and water? I don't believe so. And I think that's where our society has gone completely wrong. Housing as a human right is such BS. A human right might be you get to be on this planet without being tossed into outer space, because thankfully we're not spinning at that speed. You won't get tossed out there. Great. But gravity is now the human right, possibly.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but not actually the shelter over top of your head. So it drives me crazy, and everybody's gonna get mad at me. It's a human right. No, anything anyone else has to do for you to make you human means you aren't doing it for yourself. And it drives me crazy, and I'm gonna fight that until the end of time, because, hey, I think yachts should be a human right.
No.
Where's my yacht?
I was trying to be nice with just saying shelter, because again, it's mine, and I'm not trying to hate on anybody. And I come from the family of tenants. My husband comes from the family of landlords, but at the same time, we have to stop looking for a hand out all the time. You're looking for a hand up. And I think that's where we're enabling these people to get through it. And when you talk about water and you talk about food, and we're still fighting this water billing, trying to get landlords off the hook from paying for their tenants' delinquent utility bills, they don't even want to shut it off. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to shut it off? Like, well, we don't want to, it's going to look bad on the city. I'm like, they didn't pay for the service. If they don't pay for the service, well, we want to just kind of trickle it down. I'm like, do we really want to trickle it? Like, we're just going to, we have to worry about human rights, and we have to worry about safety and health and safety. I'm like, dude, they need to pay it. If you're just putting it to a trickle, we'll survive off of that trickle. And again, we could buy water at the store, right? So they can't buy hydro unless you're getting some batteries or you're buying the gas. But again, this is coming down to us not creating a society where you have to work hard for what you have. I don't have what I have today because we just waited for someone to give it to me. We were 18, buying a property, pregnant at the same time, and here we have properties, 18 doors now, and 4 children. It does come with sweat, and it comes with sacrifice, and a lot of people don't want to do sacrifice.
Yeah, we get a lot of comments here on the channel that say, greedy investors, greedy landlords, greedy home sellers. And I just, in my heart of hearts, I just turn around and I go, wait a minute, you want it for less, and you want it for...
You want it free.
Well, you want it for free. You want it for less. You don't think it's worth that. It's not worth that. Everybody else has paid that much for it, but you don't think it's worth it. Who's the greedy one?
I have to bug my husband to take me out for dinner. Are you serious? We're landlords, and I gotta beg him to take me out for dinner.
I'd say these days, a lot of tenants arguably might be in better financial positions on a monthly basis than some of the landlords that bought at least new construction stuff in the last few years. Just as a reminder, October the 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to do the webinar with Kayla and Front Lobby, and Zachary's going to be on it as well. So we'll put that link down below. Kayla, for everything you're doing, we'll put everything down below. If people want to get in your world and talk to you and see how they can join what you're doing, where do they go?
They can definitely find me on Facebook underneath Kayla Andrade. The Facebook group is Ontario Landlords Watch members. You can follow our public page. And again, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. That's where my elected officials and policy advisors are. So jump over onto LinkedIn if you want to make a change and start advocating for this industry. And I'm happy to connect with anybody on either platform. If you have a tenant situation or a landlord situation and you're looking to have some type of personal advice, not legal advice, love to help in our community. I've been doing it for the last 15 years.
Awesome. This was great. This is exactly what I thought it was going to be. Just a fun conversation to see where it went. We didn't have a ton of structure today.
I loved it. I watched Steve was I want his reel on what he said about the housing. I'm like, do you know how I could share that around? And it's true. This is good to have everyone's perspective to it.
I just think we have to have these conversations, and all three of us are landlords. So I get that there's going to be some people watching this that are tenants. They're like, well, you guys are saying this because of this, but there has to be that 50-50 understanding that we shouldn't hate each other. Not all investors are bad people. Not all tenants are trying to screw the system. It's mostly good people doing things. There's just a small percentage that we're talking about that's made us get to this level of animosity against each other. So, hopefully this conversation at least moves the needle slightly in one direction on that teeter-totter. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for watching. Kayla, thank you so much, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.